The wind whispered across the Utah desert, dry and relentless, dragging grains of red sand against a worn wooden fence. Beyond it, acres of open land stretched toward the horizon, unbroken, still, and eerily silent. Then, without warning, every dog on the property began to bark. Not at a coyote, not at a stranger, but at something in the sky they couldn't see. One night in 1996, a man named Tom Gorman stood on his porch, a loaded rifle in one hand and a flashlight in the other. His family, wife, teenage son, and daughter stood behind him. Frozen, he had heard a low hum coming from the tree line, a sound that didn't belong to the wind. The cows were huddled, trembling, the horses wouldn't stop pacing. Even the insects had gone quiet. Tom pointed the flashlight at the edge of the pasture, and there it was, two glowing yellow eyes, 8 feet off the ground, unmoving. UNBLINKING. Tom fired. Once. Twice. The bullet struck. But whatever it was, didn't fall. The creature turned, slowly, silently, then vanished, not into the shadows, but into the air. This was not a ghost story. This wasn't a tale passed down through small-town folklore. It was the first documented night in what would become the most studied paranormal hotspot in the United States, Skinwalker Ranch, located in northeastern Utah. This 512-acre property became the epicenter of UFO sightings, unexplainable mutilations, invisible forces, and scientific investigations that the US government still refuses to fully explain. But perhaps the most terrifying part, the family who lived there, the Gormans, didn't want fame. They didn't chase cameras or TV deals. They wanted only one thing: to escape the thing they couldn't see, but felt watching them every single night. What happens when even scientists can't explain what they're witnessing? What if the most believable alien encounter in American history didn't happen in Roswell, but right here, on a forgotten ranch in Utah? This is the true story of Skinwalker Ranch. In 1994, Tom and Ellen Gorman, along with their 2 teenage children, purchased the now infamous 12-acre ranch in northeastern Utah. It was known then by a less ominous name, the Sherman Ranch. Tom had grown up raising cattle and believed that isolated open land was perfect for building a new life, a quiet life. But what he and his family were about to experience would tear that dream apart and shake the very core of what they believed about reality. They didn't know that the property had sat unsold for years. They didn't know that the previous owners had abandoned it overnight. And they certainly didn't know what waited for them inside the fence line. The arrival of the ranch looked like paradise. A winding dirt road led to a modest home surrounded by open fields. The air smelled like juniper and dust. Hawks circled above, and on the horizon stood the Uinta Mountains, watching silently over the basin. But even on the first day, Tom noticed something strange. Every single door inside the house had been outfitted with heavy deadbolts. Not just the outer doors, but closets, cupboards, even kitchen cabinets. Some had bolts on both sides, as if to lock something in. Others had thick iron chains. There were large steel stakes driven into the ground outside, with heavy loops like something used to restrain a large animal. It didn't make sense. And then came the wolves, the giant wolf. Just a few days after moving in, Tom and his son were inspecting the pasture when a massive gray wolf, bigger than any dog they'd ever seen, walked calmly toward them from the tree line. It wasn't aggressive. In fact, it was unusually calm, even friendly. Tom's son reached out and petted the animal on the head. It stood still, panting. But then, in an instant, the wolf turned and lunged at a nearby calf, sinking its jaws deep into the young cow's snout. The calf screamed. Tom grabbed his .357 Magnum and fired at the wolf. The shot hit, but the wolf didn't react. He fired again. Nothing. He unloaded all 6 rounds. Still, the wolf didn't die. It released the calf and stared back at them, then trotted off into the woods. Tom and his son followed the tracks into the muddy riverbed, and there, just a few hundred feet in, the footprints vanished. No blood, no body, no sound. It was as if the giant creature had simply disappeared. It was the first of many unexplainable animal encounters. The mutilations within weeks. The Gormans began losing cattle in ways that defied logic. Tom would find a prize cow lying dead in the field, its body completely drained of blood. In some cases, the flesh was surgically removed in perfect circles. No footprints, no drag marks, no predators nearby. Not even insects touched the carcasses. One cow was found with a 6-inch hole cut into its eye socket. No blood, no trauma. Another was discovered with its rectum cord out in a perfect cylinder. All internal organs were missing. And yet, not once did they hear a struggle. Not once did the other cows make noise. It was as if it happened, silently, invisibly. Tom began to suspect they were being watched. The light's nightfall brought no peace. In fact, it was when the ranch came alive. Blue orbs began appearing over the trees, hovering silently. At first, the family thought they were drones or perhaps some kind of military technology. But the orbs moved with intelligence. They would dart, stop instantly, change direction mid-flight. One orb passed inches from Tom's face like static and caused instant nausea. Another orb hovered near the cattle pen. As Tom and his son approached with flashlights, the orb darted off, and behind it, they found a cow mutilated and steaming. It had happened in seconds. Ellen began hearing voices at night, whispering foreign chanting, in languages she didn't understand. Her son saw shadows moving across his window, but when he looked outside, nothing. They began sleeping with the lights on, then with weapons nearby. Eventually, they all moved into the same room. The fear was becoming a third member of the family. The portals. One night, Tom saw something that changed everything. He was walking the property with his dogs when a floating rectangle of light appeared over the field. It was a glowing frame like a doorway suspended in midair. Through it, he could see a blue sky daylight while the rest of the ranch was cloaked in night. Suddenly, something crawled through it. A black, faceless creature, long and thin, dropped onto all fours and ran off into the trees. Tom's dogs chased after it into the woods. Moments later, he heard them yelp in terror. They didn't return. When he searched the area in daylight, he found 3 black piles of ash, still warm. No paw prints, no blood, just ash. His family was done. His wife refused to sleep there. Another night, his kids were traumatized. They moved out temporarily, but Tom stayed behind to protect the land. That was when he made contact with someone who would change everything. Robert Bigelow, Las Vegas billionaire with ties to space research. Bigelow had heard whispers of the strange phenomena occurring on the ranch. He contacted Tom, visited the site himself, and quickly offered to buy the property, not to develop it, but to study it. Bigelow had recently formed the National Institute for Discovery Science, NIDS, a private research group funded by his own fortune, with a focus on paranormal and fringe science. In 1996, Tom agreed to sell the ranch to Bigelow but stayed on as caretaker and ranch manager. The investigation was about to begin, but no one, not even Bigelow's elite team of former military personnel and physicists, was prepared for what the ranch had in store for them next. When Robert Bigelow took over Skinwalker Ranch, he didn't just send in hobbyists. He sent scientists, ex-military operatives, physicists, and government liaisons. They brought sensors, cameras, electromagnetic detectors, night vision equipment, and infrared scopes. They came expecting strange things. They left confused, shaken, and afraid. From 1996 onward, the National Institute for Discovery Science, NIDS, documented case after case of paranormal phenomena, but rarely could they catch it on film. The anomalies seemed intelligent. They would disable equipment. Batteries would drain without cause. Cameras would stop recording just as objects moved. One of the first things they observed was an increase in cattle mutilations, even more precise than before. Surveillance cameras were installed throughout the ranch, and yet somehow cows would be found dead within monitored zones with no recorded footage. More disturbing was the sudden appearance of orbs that reacted to human presence. Researchers would see them approach slowly, glowing spheres, sometimes white, sometimes blue, and then dart away when pursued. One physicist described a moment when an orb scanned him, as if assessing his internal structure. Minutes later, he collapsed with a seizure and had to be hospitalized. Another event occurred when a researcher witnessed what appeared to be a tunnel of light open up midair, and through it crawled a dark humanoid figure. It stepped out of the portal and vanished into the trees. The team raced to the area. The creature was gone. The portal closed, but perhaps the most terrifying moment came in the form of invisible intelligence. Researchers were being followed. Their equipment would beep randomly. Shadows would move just out of frame. One night, 2 men stationed on opposite ends of the ranch radioed each other. They both felt something standing directly behind them, breathing, watching, but when they turned around, nothing was there. Tom Gorman, still living on the property, as caretaker, witnessed an orb chase his horses into a fence, breaking their legs. He shot at the orb. It blinked out of existence. NIDS compiled years of data. Some of it was turned over to the Department of Defense. And then unexpectedly, Bigelow shut the operation down. Publicly, they claimed nothing substantial was found, but insiders suggest otherwise. After NIDS left, the ranch was sold again, this time to a shadowy corporation linked to government defense projects. The new owner renamed it Adamantium Holdings. Access was restricted. New surveillance towers went up. The perimeter was sealed. Today, Skinwalker Ranch remains one of the most studied and most classified locations in the United States. TV shows, military insiders, and even Pentagon leaks have pointed toward the ranch being involved in a deeper, unspoken mission to understand the boundary between our world and something else, something older, smarter, and watching. As for the Gormans, they never fully recovered. Tom now refuses interviews. His family, though safe, still suffer from night terrors. The animals they lost were never explained. The footage they tried to gather was never complete. To this day, no one, not the government, not Bigelow, not even the latest private teams, has been able to fully explain what happens on Skinwalker Ranch, and maybe that's the point. Because if they could explain it, then the fear would be justified. But the unknown, the silence, the absence of answers, that's what haunts us most. If this story made you pause, think, or feel something, drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to America's Hidden Crimes for more haunting, real-life stories that go beyond the headlines. Like the video to help others discover this truth. Share it with someone who still thinks aliens don't exist, because sometimes the most unbelievable stories are the ones we refuse to believe.